The wind howled across the frozen wasteland of northern Greenland as Doctor checked his equipment for the third time that morning. He had been working at the Arctic Research Station for 15 years, studying ice samples and tracking climate changes. It was quiet work, boring work, the kind of work that most scientists would never choose, but loved it. He loved the silence, the emptiness, and the feeling that he was standing at the edge of the world. That February morning started like any other. Woke up at 6, drank his coffee, and walked to the research building through snow that reached his knees. His assistant, a young woman named Laura, was already there. She was staring at a computer screen with an expression he had never seen before on her face. "You need to see this," she said. Her voice was shaking. He walked over and looked at the screen. It showed data from their ground-penetrating radar, a tool they used to study the layers of ice beneath the surface. But the image on the screen was not showing ice layers. It was showing something else entirely. 300 meters below them, buried in ice that had been frozen for over 12,000 years, there was a shape. The shape was long and smooth, with curves that could not be natural. It stretched for nearly half a kilometer, and its outline was clear even through the static of the display. Felt his heart stop. He had spent his entire career studying ice. He knew what rocks looked like on radar. He knew what ancient riverbeds looked like. He knew what volcanic deposits looked like. This was none of those things. "That's impossible," he whispered. "I've checked the equipment 3 times," Laura said. "It's not a malfunction. There's something down there, something big." Within hours, had contacted his superiors at the National Science Foundation. Within days, the small research station had become the center of the largest scientific operation in human history. Military helicopters landed on the ice every hour, bringing scientists, engineers, soldiers, and equipment. A massive drilling rig was assembled, designed to cut through 300 meters of ancient ice without damaging whatever lay beneath. The United States government tried to keep the discovery secret, but secrets are hard to keep in the modern world. Satellite images leaked online. Workers talked to their families. Within a week, the whole world knew that something had been found beneath the Arctic ice, something that was not natural, something that was not from Earth. Watched the drilling operations from a heated observation tent. Laura stood beside him, along with 3 other scientists who had been chosen to lead the first exploration team. Dr. Harrison was a linguist who specialized in ancient languages. Dr. Price was a medical doctor with training in emergency situations. And Dr. Gregory Cole was an engineer who had spent 20 years designing spacecraft for NASA. "Whatever is down there has been frozen for 12,000 years, said to his team. "That means it predates the end of the last ice age. It predates the first human cities. It predates writing, agriculture, and everything we think of as civilization." "If it's a spacecraft," Gregory said slowly, "then whoever built it was watching our ancestors when they were still living in caves." The drilling took 3 weeks, barely slept during that time. He would lie in his bunk and stare at the ceiling, thinking about what they might find. He thought about all the science fiction movies he had watched as a child. He thought about all the books he had read about first contact with alien life. None of them had prepared him for this moment. When the drill finally broke through into a vast cavern of ancient ice, was the first one to see it. He stood at the edge of the shaft and looked down into the darkness below. Floodlights illuminated the scene, and what he saw took his breath away. The ship was enormous. Its hull was made of a gray metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Strange symbols covered its surface, worn by time but still visible. It lay in the ice like a sleeping giant, waiting to be awakened after 12,000 years of silence. The next day, the exploration team descended in a specially designed elevator cage. Led them down through the shaft, past layers of ice that represented thousands of years of Earth's history. The temperature dropped as they descended, falling far below what the heating units in their suits could fully counter. When they reached the bottom, stepped out onto the floor of the cavern. The ship loomed above them, so large that he could not see all of it at once. He walked toward it slowly, his boots crunching on the ancient ice. Laura reached the hull first. She touched it with her gloved hand and immediately pulled back. "It's cold," she said. "Colder than anything I've ever felt. It's like it's still holding onto the cold of space." Examine the symbols covering the surface. "This is definitely a language," he said, recording everything with his camera. "But it's nothing like any human writing system I've ever seen. The characters seem to flow into each other. It's almost organic." They spent 2 days searching the exterior of the ship before they found the entrance. It was who found it, almost by accident. He was examining a section of the hull when his hand brushed against a small panel. The panel glowed briefly, and then a circular section of the hull began to move. The team gathered around as the entrance opened. It dilated like the pupil of an eye, revealing a dark corridor beyond. Ancient air flowed out to meet them, air that had been sealed inside the ship since before human civilization began. Shined his flashlight into the darkness. The corridor stretched away into the depths of the ship, its walls covered with more of the strange flowing script. Bioluminescent panels flickered weakly along the ceiling, suggesting that some power source inside the ship was still functioning after all these. "This is it," said. His voice was steady, but his heart was pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. "This is what we came for. Whatever is in there, whatever we find, we face it together." He looked at his team. Laura nodded, gripped his recording equipment tightly, checked her medical kit. Gregory was already calculating the engineering principles that could have built such a vessel. Turned back to the entrance, he took a deep breath, and then he stepped inside. The moment his foot crossed the threshold, the corridor lit up. The bioluminescent panels brightened, casting a soft blue light over everything. Somewhere deep within the ship, ancient machines hummed to life. And then, without warning, the entrance sealed shut behind them. They were trapped inside an alien spacecraft, buried 300 meters beneath the ice, with no way to contact the surface. Looked at his team, seeing fear on their faces but also determination. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. And whatever they discovered inside this ancient vessel would change humanity forever. The corridor stretched deeper into the ship than had expected. Every step they took triggered more lights, more systems waking from their long sleep. The walls hummed with energy that had been dormant for 12,000 years, and the air grew warmer as they walked, though it remained far colder than any human would find comfortable. Notice that the corridors were built for beings much larger than humans. The ceilings arched nearly 4 meters above their heads, and the doorways were wide enough for 3 people to walk through side by side. Whoever had built this ship was not small. "Look at these markings," said, running his gloved hand along the wall. His translation software was working constantly, trying to find patterns in the alien script. "The language isn't just written here. It's built into the structure of the ship itself. Every surface tells a story." They passed through a series of chambers that seemed to serve different purposes. One room contained rows of empty seats, designed for bodies with different proportions than human beings. Another held machines that Gregory examined with growing excitement, muttering about power systems and propulsion methods that everything he knew about physics. It was Laura who found the first body. She had wandered ahead of the group, drawn by a soft glow coming from a side chamber. When she stepped through the doorway, she stopped so suddenly that nearly walked into her. "Oh my God," Laura whispered. The chamber was large and circular, with a domed ceiling that glowed with soft white light. Around the edges of the room stood dozens of transparent capsules, each one roughly 3 meters tall, and inside each capsule was a figure. Pushed past the others and stared at the nearest capsule. The being inside was humanoid in shape, but clearly not human. It stood at least 3 meters tall, with long limbs and skin that shimmered with colors that seemed to shift as he watched. Its face had 2 eyes, a nose and a mouth in roughly the same positions as a human face, but the proportions were different. The eyes were larger, almost too large and completely black. "They look almost peaceful," said, moving from capsule to capsule. She pulled out her medical scanner and began taking readings. "These readings don't make sense. There's still cellular activity in these bodies. Very slow, very faint, but it's there." "What does that mean?" asked. Looked at him with an expression of disbelief. "It means they might not be dead. They might be in some kind of suspended animation. They've been asleep for 12,000 years." As if responding to her words, the ship hummed louder. Deep within its structure, systems that had been waiting for this moment began to activate. The temperature in the chamber rose several degrees. The lights brightened. And then a voice spoke. It came from everywhere at once, resonating through the walls and floor and ceiling. The language was unlike anything human ears had ever heard, a series of tones and clicks and harmonies that seemed to bypass the ears and speak directly to the mind. Translation software captured the sounds and began analyzing them. Numbers scrolled across his screen as the program searched for patterns, for meaning, for anything it could understand. After 30 seconds that felt like hours, words began to appear. "Warning, biological signatures detected, non-crew entities present, containment protocols initiating." The doors to the chamber slammed shut. Ran to them and tried to push them open, but they were sealed tight. The metal was cold against his hands, impossibly cold, and it would not move. "We're trapped," Gregory said. He was examining the door, looking for any mechanism they could use to open it. "Whatever system controls these doors, it's decided we're a threat." "Warning," the voice spoke again. "Quarantine measures active, awakening sequence beginning." Grab's arm, "Look." He turned around. The capsule nearest to Laura had begun to glow. The transparent material was becoming opaque, filled with swirling clouds of color, and inside the figure was moving. One by one, the other capsules began to glow as well. Throughout the chamber, the ancient crew of the alien vessel was waking from their 12,000-year sleep. "What do we do?" Laura asked. Her voice was calm but could see the fear in her eyes. "We stay together," said. "We stay calm and we try to communicate." The first capsule opened with a soft hiss. The being inside took a step forward, its movement slow and careful, like someone waking from a very long dream. It was even more impressive standing free than it had been inside the capsule. Its body was lean and graceful, built for a different gravity than Earth's. Its eyes, those huge dark eyes, focused on the group of humans standing in the center of the chamber. For a long moment no one moved. No one spoke. Two species, separated by evolution and thousands of light years, stared at each other in silence. Then the alien spoke. Its voice was deep and resonant, filling the chamber with sounds that felt in his chest as much as his ears. Software struggled to keep up, parsing the alien language in real time, searching for meaning in sounds that no human had ever heard before. "Small ones," the translation appeared on screen. "You have found the vessel of the fallen. You have awakened that which should have remained sleeping." Stepped forward. His legs were shaking, but he forced himself to move. "We mean no harm," he said, speaking slowly and clearly. "We are scientists, explorers. We found your ship buried in the ice and we wanted to understand." The alien tilted its head, a gesture that seemed almost human. More capsules were opening now, more figures emerging to join the first. They gathered around the humans, towering over them like adults surrounding children. "Understanding," the first alien said through translation software. "Yes, your kind always seeks understanding. It is why we came to this world so long ago. We saw the spark in your ancestors, the hunger for knowledge that would one day carry you to the stars." Laura found her voice. "You knew about us. 12,000 years ago you knew about humans." The alien made a gesture with its long fingers that the software interpreted as sadness. We watched your kind take its first steps toward civilization. We saw potential in you that we had not seen in 100,000 years of traveling between stars. But we also saw something else, something that terrified us. Felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. What did you see? The alien turned its great dark eyes toward him, and in those eyes saw something ancient and weary and afraid. We saw hope, the alien said. For the first time in millions of years, we saw hope, and we have been waiting ever since for you to find us. The last of the capsules opened. Nearly 30 aliens now stood in the chamber, the final survivors of a species that had once traveled across galaxies. They looked at the 5 humans with expressions that transcended the boundaries between species. They looked like beings who had been waiting a very long time for this moment, and realized that whatever came next, nothing would ever be the same again. The alien who had spoken first introduced itself with a name that software translated as Voice of the Morning Star. It was the leader of this group, the captain of a ship that had traveled farther than human minds could imagine. And now it stood before 5 humans in a chamber buried beneath Arctic ice, preparing to share secrets that would change everything. Voice of the Morning Star moved with a grace that seemed impossible for a being so large. Each step was careful and measured, as if it was still remembering how to use its body after 12,000 years of sleep. The other aliens followed behind, forming a half-circle around the human team. "You have many questions," Voice of the Morning Star said through the translation software. "I can see them in your eyes. Your kind has always been curious. It is one of the things that makes you special." Nodded slowly. "We have more questions than we know how to ask, but I think the most important one is this. Why are you here? Why did you come to Earth?" The alien was silent for a moment. Then it gestured toward a doorway at the far end of the chamber. "Come with me. What I must show you cannot be explained with words alone." The doors that had sealed shut now opened freely. Voice of the Morning Star led the humans deeper into the ship, through corridors that grew wider and more elaborate as they progressed. Other aliens joined them along the way, emerging from side chambers and falling into step with the procession. They passed through a room filled with what looked like plants, but plants made of crystal rather than organic matter. The crystals glowed with soft light in colors that had no names for. Laura reached out to touch one, and it chimed softly, producing a musical note that lingered in the air. "These are memory gardens," Voice of the Morning Star explained. "Each crystal contains the experiences of one of our people. When we pass from life, our memories are preserved here, so that future generations can learn from what we have seen." Gregory was examining the technology around them with growing amazement. "The power systems in this ship," he said. "I can't even begin to understand how they work. We're 300 meters underground, the ship has been frozen for 12,000 years, and everything is still functioning." "Our technology was ancient when your son was young," the alien replied. "We have had millions of years to perfect it, but technology alone cannot save a species. We learned that lesson too late." They reached a massive chamber at the heart of the ship. It was circular, with a domed ceiling that stretched high overhead. In the center of the room stood a platform, and on the platform was the largest screen had ever seen. It curved around them like the inside of a sphere, dark and waiting. Voice of the Morning Star stepped onto the platform. "What I am about to show you is the reason we fled across the universe. It is the reason we came to your world, and it is the reason we have waited 12,000 years for you to find us." The screen flickered to life. At first, thought he was looking at a photograph of the night sky. Stars filled the display, millions of them, arranged in patterns he did not recognize. But then the image began to move, and he realized he was watching a recording of a journey across space. "Our species was born in a galaxy far from this one," Voice of the Morning Star narrated. "For millions of years, we grew and learned and expanded. We built cities that floated among the stars. We created art that lasted longer than planets. We met other species, thousands of them, and together we formed a community of intelligent life that stretched across the cosmos. The screen showed images of alien civilizations, each one more wondrous than the last. Cities made of light, ships that swam through space like living creatures, beings of every shape and size, working together to build something beautiful. We thought we were alone in facing the challenges of existence, the alien continued. We thought that if intelligent species worked together, there was nothing we could not overcome. The images changed. The beautiful cities went dark. The ships stopped moving. The alien beings began to disappear, one by one, like candles being snuffed out. Then we discovered the truth. We discovered the silence. Laura felt her stomach drop. What is the silence? The screen showed something new. It was not a being or a machine or a ship. It was an absence, a darkness that moved between stars like a predator hunting prey. Where it passed, stars still burned, planets still turned, but all traces of intelligent life simply vanished. The silence has existed since the beginning of the universe, Voice of the Morning Star said. It is older than stars, older than galaxies. It hunts intelligent life, not for food, not for territory, but because it is its nature to hunt. It is drawn to the patterns that thinking minds create, the order that civilizations impose on chaos. Watched as the darkness on the screen consumed civilization after civilization. Worlds that had taken millions of years to build were erased in moments. Species that had created wonders beyond imagination simply ceased to exist. We tried to fight it. Every civilization tried. None succeeded. The silence cannot be reasoned with. It cannot be destroyed. It cannot be escaped. It finds intelligent life and it ends it. That is all it does. That is all it has ever done. Spoke up, her voice barely above a whisper. How many civilizations has it destroyed? Voice of the Morning Star was silent for a long moment. We stopped counting after the first million. The number hung in the air like a weight. 1,000,000 civilizations, 1,000,000 species that had built and dreamed and loved and created, all of them gone, all of them erased by something that could not be stopped. When our own civilization fell, a few of us escaped. We took what we could carry and fled across the universe, warning others, searching for something, anything that might be able to stand against the silence. For 100,000 years we searched, and we found nothing but more death. The screen showed the ship they were standing in, traveling through space, stopping at world after world. Each time the aliens tried to warn the local species. Each time the silence followed. We came to your world 12,000 years ago at the end of our hope. Your ancestors were barely using stone tools. They had no cities, no writing, no technology. By every measure we knew, your species was millions of years away from being able to help us. Voice of the Morning Star turned to face the humans and saw something in those ancient eyes that he had not expected. He saw hope. But we saw something in your ancestors, something we had never seen in any other species, something that made us choose to stay here, to sleep in the ice, to wait for you to grow. Felt his heart pounding. What did you see? The alien leaned closer, its massive form casting a shadow over the entire team. We saw the impossible. We saw hope. We saw the one thing in the universe that the silence cannot predict. Voice of the Morning Star straightened up and looked at each human in turn. We saw humanity. Stood in silence, trying to process what he had just heard. The silence. 1,000,000 civilizations destroyed. And somehow, impossibly, the aliens believed that humanity was special, that humans could do what no other species in the history of the universe had accomplished. I don't understand, Laura said, voicing what they were all thinking. You've seen species that built cities among stars, species that traveled between galaxies. How could we possibly be different? We've barely made it to our own moon. Voice of the Morning Star gestured to another alien, one that software identified as keeper of records. This alien was older than the others, its skin marked with patterns that suggested great age even among a species that measured time in. Keeper of Records activated a new display on the massive screen. Data appeared, charts and graphs and timelines that stretched back millions of years. "I have studied your species since we first arrived on your world," Keeper of Records said. "I have watched your ancestors hunt with spears. I have watched you discover fire, invent the wheel, build your first boats. And in all that time, I have observed something that exists in no other intelligent species we have ever encountered." The display showed a comparison between human development and that of other civilizations. Studied the data, trying to understand what he was seeing. "The builders of the seventh arm were a great civilization," Keeper of Records continued. "They took 400,000 years to develop. The harmonious collective required nearly 1,000,000 years. Every species we have studied followed predictable patterns of development. They advanced at rates we could calculate with precision." The alien pointed to a line on the chart that climbed far steeper than all the others. "Your species achieved in less than 10,000 years from your first permanent settlements. The rate of your technological advancement has no parallel in our records. You do in centuries what other species take millions of years to accomplish." Gregory leaned forward, his engineering mind analyzing the data. "So we develop faster than other species. Is that really so unusual?" "It is not just speed," Voice of the Morning Star said. "Speed alone would not make you special. Many species have developed quickly under pressure. What makes you unique is something else entirely." The screen changed to show a new kind of data. Did not recognize the measurements, but he could see patterns in the display, waves and fluctuations that seemed almost random. "The silence hunts by detecting the signatures of intelligent thought," the alien explained. "Every thinking mind creates patterns, orderly structures in the chaos of the universe. The more advanced a civilization becomes, the more predictable these patterns become. The silence follows these patterns like a predator following tracks in the snow." Was recording everything, his translation software working overtime to capture every word. "You're saying it can detect how we think." "It can detect the order that thinking creates, and it has done so for billions of years because every intelligent species we have encountered thinks in fundamentally similar ways. They solve problems logically. They build systems that follow rules. Their minds are complex, but they are predictable." Voice of the Morning Star moved closer to the humans, studying them with those enormous dark eyes. "Then we found your species, and we found something that should not exist." The display showed brain scans, comparing alien neural patterns to human ones. The alien patterns were orderly, structured, beautiful in their complexity. The human patterns were chaotic, wild, full of contradictions and unexpected connections. "Your minds are different from every other intelligent species we have encountered. You are capable of holding contradictory beliefs at the same time. You make decisions based on emotion as easily as logic. You create art that follows no rules and solve problems in ways that defy all probability." Laughed nervously. "You make us sound like we're crazy." "Not crazy," Voice of the Morning Star said. "Unpredictable, wonderfully, impossibly unpredictable. We have observed your species for 12,000 years, and we still cannot predict what you will do next. Your scientists make discoveries by accident. Your artists create beauty from chaos. Your leaders make choices that seem irrational but somehow succeed." Thought about human history. He thought about all the times that people had done things that made no sense on paper but had changed the world anyway. He thought about inventors who refused to give up despite years of failure. He thought about explorers who sailed into unknown waters with nothing but hope. He thought about ordinary people who had performed extraordinary acts of courage when logic said they should run. "The silence cannot model you," Voice of the Morning Star continued. It cannot predict your behavior. In all the billions of years it has hunted intelligent life, it has never encountered anything like the human mind. You are chaos given form. You are the unpredictable variable in an equation that has remained unchanged since the beginning of time. Laura stepped forward. But even if we're hard to predict, we're still just one species on one small planet. The silence has destroyed a million civilizations. What can we possibly do against something like that? The alien made a gesture that the translation software could not interpret, something between a smile and a shrug. We do not know. That is precisely the point. Every other species we have warned has asked the same question. They have analyzed the threat, calculated the odds, and concluded that resistance was impossible. And then they have died just as they predicted. Keeper of Records spoke again. You are the first species we have encountered that might not calculate the odds at all. You are the first species that might simply refuse to accept that the fight is impossible. Your history is filled with examples of humans achieving things that every logical analysis said could not be done. Remembered reading about explorers who had survived against impossible odds, scientists who had made discoveries that everyone said were impossible, soldiers who had won battles they should have lost, ordinary people who had changed the world simply by refusing to give up. You're betting everything on the fact that humans don't know when to quit, he said slowly. Voice of the Morning Star made that unreadable gesture again. We are betting everything on the fact that humans might find a way where no other species could. We are betting on chaos. We are betting on unpredictability. We are betting on the one thing in the universe that the silence has never faced before. The alien placed one of its long hands on shoulder. The touch was surprisingly gentle. We have waited 12,000 years for you to be ready. We have watched you grow from primitive hunters to a species that reaches for the stars. And now, at last, you have found us. Looked at his team. Laura, Gregory, 5 humans standing in an alien ship, being told that they were the universe's last hope. It was absurd. It was impossible. It was exactly the kind of situation that humans had faced throughout history. What happens now? Asked. Voice of the Morning Star turned toward a doorway at the far end of the chamber. Now we show you what we have been protecting. Now we give you the tools you will need to face what is coming. Now we discover together whether humanity truly is as special as we believe. The alien began walking toward the doorway. Follow me. It is time for you to receive your inheritance. Voice of the Morning Star led them through corridors that grew more elaborate with each step. The walls here were covered not just with the flowing alien script, but with images, carvings that depicted scenes from 100 different worlds. Saw cities of crystal and cities of fire, beings that swam through liquid metal and beings that floated in clouds of pure energy. Each image represented a civilization that had once flourished and was now gone forever. These are the fallen, the alien explained as they walked. Every species that we tried to warn, every friend we made and lost. We carry their memories with us so that they will not be forgotten entirely. They reached a chamber that was smaller than the others but felt somehow more important. The walls glowed with soft golden light, and in the center of the room stood a single pedestal made of the same gray metal as the ship's hull. On the pedestal rested an object that made his breath catch in his throat. It was a sphere, no larger than a basketball, but its surface contained depths that should have been impossible. Patterns swirled within it, moving and changing, extending inward in ways that hurts eyes to follow. It was beautiful and terrifying and completely unlike anything human technology had ever produced. This is the repository, Voice of the Morning Star said. It contains the combined knowledge of every civilization the silence has destroyed. Technologies, histories, sciences, arts, philosophies. Everything that a million species learned in millions of years of existence, preserved in this single object. His eyes widened. You're telling me that sphere contains the knowledge of a million different civilizations. More than that. It contains their wisdom, their discoveries, their dreams. It is the sum total of everything intelligent life has achieved in the history of the universe. Laura moved closer to the pedestal, drawn by the swirling patterns in the sphere. Why would you preserve all this? If the silence is going to destroy everything anyway, what's the point? Voice of the Morning Star made the gesture that had begun to associate with sadness. Hope. Even as civilization after civilization fell, we hoped that someday we would find someone who could use this knowledge, someone who could take what we had gathered and do something that no one had done before, someone who could fight back. Stared at the sphere. Inside it was more knowledge than humanity had accumulated in all of its history. Technologies that could take humans to the stars, sciences that could transform the world, wisdom from species that had faced challenges humans could not even imagine. "And you want to give this to us?" he asked. "We want to offer it to you. The choice must be yours." Frowned. "What do you mean, the choice? Why wouldn't we want this knowledge?" Keeper of Records stepped forward. "Because accepting the repository comes with a cost. The moment humanity begins using this knowledge, you will become visible to the silence. You will announce your presence as a true spacefaring civilization, and it will come for you as it has come for everyone before you." The room fell silent, felt the weight of the decision pressing down on him. It was not just his choice to make. It was a choice that would affect every human being on Earth. "How long do we have?" Gregory asked, "before the silence finds us anyway?" "It is already approaching this sector of the galaxy. Based on our observations, it will find Earth within the next century, regardless of what you choose. The only question is whether you will face it with the knowledge of 1 billion years of civilization, or with only what you have developed on your own." Looked at his team. He saw fear on their faces, but he also saw something else. Determination, curiosity, the stubborn refusal to accept impossible odds that Voice of the Morning Star had described. These were humans, and humans did not give up. "What do you think?" he asked them. "This isn't just my decision." Laura spoke first. "We came down here to learn. We came because we wanted to understand. If there's knowledge that could help humanity survive, how can we turn away from it?" Nodded. "I've spent my whole life studying how civilizations communicate. Now I have the chance to study how 1 million civilizations communicated. I can't walk away from that." Took a deep breath. "I became a doctor to help people. If this knowledge can help save not just people but our entire species, then I think we have to try." Gregory was examining the sphere with the eye of an engineer. "The technology in this ship alone is centuries ahead of anything we have. If the repository contains even more advanced knowledge, humanity could leap forward in ways we can't even imagine." Turned back to Voice of the Morning Star. "What about you? What happens to your people if we accept this?" The alien was quiet for a moment. "We are the last of our kind. 30 individuals, all that remains of a species that once numbered in the billions. We have no home to return to, no future to plan for. If you accept the repository, we will help you learn to use it. We will share what we know. And when the time comes, we will stand beside you against the silence. Even though you've seen it destroy everyone who tried to fight it." Voice of the Morning Star leaned down until its face was level with us. Those enormous dark eyes reflected the golden light of the chamber, and in them saw something that had survived 12,000 years of waiting. "We have seen it destroy species that calculated the odds and knew they would lose. We have never seen it face a species that refuses to calculate the odds at all. We have never seen it face humans." Looked at the sphere. He thought about everything Voice of the Morning Star had told them. He thought about the silence, that ancient darkness moving between stars. He thought about all the civilizations that had fallen before it. And then he thought about humanity, about the explorers who had crossed oceans in wooden ships, about the scientists who had cured diseases that had killed millions, about the astronauts who had walked on the moon, about all the times in history when humans had faced impossible challenges and refused to accept defeat. "We're human," he said quietly. "We've been facing impossible odds since we climbed down from the trees. We survived ice ages and plagues and wars. We've reached the moon, split the atom and built machines that think." He reached out and placed his hand on the sphere. It was warm, alive, pulsing with the collected knowledge of civilizations beyond counting. He felt it responding to his touch, recognizing that a new species was ready to receive its inheritance. "You want unpredictable. You want chaos. You want a species that looks at impossible odds and laughs." Lifted the sphere from its pedestal. Light exploded through the chamber as systems throughout the ship activated. Screens came alive with information in formats that human minds could understand. The repository had accepted a new keeper. "You found the right planet." Voice of the morning star straightened to its full height. Around the room, the other aliens stood at attention, witnessing the moment they had waited 12,000 years to see. "Then it begins," the alien said. "The final chapter in the war against the silence, humanity's chapter." Deep within the ship, engines that had been cold began to warm. Outside, far above them, the ice started to crack as the vessel prepared to move for the first time since before human civilization began. Held the sphere close to his chest and looked at his team. Laura, Gregory, 5 humans who had descended into a hole in the ice and would emerge carrying the fate of the universe. "Let's go tell the world," he said. The elevator carried them upward, past layers of ancient ice, toward a surface where everything had changed. Behind them, the alien ship hummed with awakening power. Ahead of them, humanity waited, unaware that they were about to receive the greatest gift and the greatest challenge in the history of intelligent life. The silence was coming. It had destroyed 1,000,000 civilizations. It had hunted intelligent life since the beginning of time. But it had never faced humans before. And for the first time in billions of years, the outcome was truly uncertain. Smiled as the elevator rose toward the light. The universe had no idea what was coming.